All right, here we go again with another Monday Night Live, opposing perspectives, marriage expectations versus reality. So, hopefully, everybody else will go ahead and log on soon, and we will get started. So, I see Sean and Michelle. Michelle. And
Just make sure my Wi-Fi is right. Since
please,
y'all and my Wi-Fi be jacked up.
Miss Sean's thing, so I just invited her. I missed her request.
Good. Okay. Should be
Okay,
good.
you got it. See, y'all so smart. I see you, Lashandra.
I see you.
You have to say it like that?
Apparently he did. So.
New look, new address.
Oh.
I have to address her differently.
Oh, that's because I just got out of the shower. It's wet. Somebody needs to come blow dry my hair. Can we talk about the marriage expectation that I will find a husband that will blow dry my hair for me?
That'd be angry just scout.
Angry's, yes. Angry's my scout.
Yep.
All the above.
That's what we want.
Every day.
Yeah, y'all, boy. I know Michelle has a crazy list. I don't think I've ever heard yours, Sean.
Of like marriage expectations?
I was
Yeah.
supposed to
For
take
a
notes.
partner? Oh, my list isn't crazy. It's normal.
Oh, I know I'm supposed to take notes. I guess I need to make a list then.
You already have a list. I don't know where Sir William is. He probably thinks he's still in that other time
do.
zone. He's up there,
and then himself.
He's a PK now, a politician's kid. So he's in a different little time zone. So I think they're still up in Detroit right now celebrating
Retirement. Her dad retired, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Daddy's retirement and his announcement that he's running for governor.
Oh,
Who is?
He said 2 minutes. Yeah. His father-in-law is running for governor.
Oh, I thought you meant Will was. Okay, got you. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
you never know. With this crew, you never know.
This is true. This is true.
Texas?
Who knows?
Wow, that'd be crazy. Yeah, it's almost time for me to gear up to run again. So we'll see what happens this time.
I still have my Ron Walker T-shirt for support. I'm not in your county, but I was spreading the word.
Still got to represent wherever you are. I wish I wouldn't have put a year on there so I could reuse them, but
Yeah,
we're going evergreen content. Evergreen content.
Well, you do have somebody that has a T-shirt thing. We can put some glitter on that mug and stamp the new year. You know what I'm saying?
Put a 2 over it.
That's right.
Well, we're wearing our other T-shirts today, so there's that.
Oh my God, y'all fit them and you got them.
Yeah, I got mine.
Yeah.
I got mine this morning.
You are the
You're
only
just
one.
seeing this?
Yours fits the best. I was so afraid everybody's not going to fit. Okay, let's go ahead and get this conversation started. Will said 2 minutes. I'm about to do something I never do, and I'll be right back.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Never do that, but today.
Clearly. Well, while he's gone, Michelle, speaking of T-shirts, I need one of yours for Vegas. We're going to the Usher show, and I want to wear, I think I want your Dirty South one, so I'm going to put it in order. So.
Oh, perfect. Yes, ma'am. You can do that at artistperiod.com. If anybody's wondering what she's talking about, if you go to artistperiod.com, you can get some of my merch. I have different T-shirts and trendy designs right there.
Excellent.
And what was your last podcast about since he just ghosted us for 2.2 seconds?
We talked about, our last podcast was about Nick Cannon and all those things with all those people.
Okay.
So encourage people to check that out. If you, look at you, look, you put your shirt on too. Look at us. Coordinate. Love it.
There. So I didn't know if y'all were going to wear them or not. What? Okay, so I'm in it. I know Will's not going to be in his because his was sent to Texas and he's in Detroit. But that dude is still not on here.
I apologize. Everybody be quiet.
Exactly. That sounds like a fake bark.
Sorry.
That's him fucking Will for being late.
Okay.
There he is.
All right, and we're going to get it started. Why does your dog sound fake, though, for real?
Yeah, I have 2 now, and they're big. And
True. Where's the other one? Who's the other one?
let's not talk about it.
Okay.
long, terrible story. But I have 2 dogs
Mhm.
now. And one is 8 years old. The other one is 3 years old, and the 3-year-old is a hot mess express. So
Oh, wow.
I'm a golden retriever now.
A golden retriever.
Mm-hmm. To go with my pit bull. Those go together.
Welcome, William.
Man,
Good to see you. We've been talking about you.
what's going on, man? So it's been a long week. I've been out in these streets, man. So
No, I told him you're like a politician's kid now, so your responsibility there.
it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. Anyway,
All right, let's get into it. So Michelle, tell them who you are, Sean, Will, and we'll get it cracking.
All right, I'm Michelle C. of Candid Kisses TV. You can follow me at Candid Kisses TV, KANDID KISSES TV, and on YouTube at Candid Kisses TV.
Awesome. I'll go. I'm LaShondra Cordier. I'm one half of the Grown Ass Dating podcast. You can follow us at grownassdating.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as well at Grown Ass Dating.
am I next?
Yeah,
Okay.
you are.
Will Jordan. You can follow me at Renaissance Will 404. Podcast coming soon.
There we go. Of course, I'm Arthur Walker, and today we're going to talk about marriage, the expectations versus reality. So last week, I know we started to get into that a little bit. This Negro right here, William, why is this always your eating time? No matter what, Will's like, wait, I got a live at 9, save the food for them. Now my dogs are barking.
You're not alone, Will.
It's oranges, man. I've been fasting all day.
Mm.
Prime eat time. Yeah.
So you eat real fast when you get on the podcast. Okay.
Can y'all hear my dogs too?
No.
Just my loud ass. Now. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, so they're competing with yours, I guess. Anyway, getting into it. So I know Michelle has a crazy list when it comes down to expectations of like what she wants in a man. But
That is not true. That's what you assume.
Michelle's like, he has to cut grass, paint houses, be able to fix, do all this stuff before she'll ever even consider him.
Oh my god.
Oh Lord, I hope this don't mess up today.
Oh man, what's going on? Oh, we're all buffering.
Yeah, I know. Am I the only one not buffering?
You're the man. The way your face is set up right now,
It's hilarious. Your face was hilarious.
you look like you're in so much pain. You look.
Am I buffering?
No, you're good now. But before you were in so much pain.
Oh, okay.
With this weather, man, I don't know what's gonna go on. It's been crazy weather all day.
Yeah,
Oh,
So anyway, Sean, please kick us off.
well, and I
Okay.
think the question is that first of all, what's your question? Because
I know there isn't even really a question. There's just
the list that I have for a partner isn't necessarily my expectation for marriage. It's my expectation for my partner. Which I
yeah.
think, while there are similarities, that can be a little different. And I think I'm a firm believer that expectation is the killer of all things. That you need good communication before you live in your expectations, because I think that creates an unrealistic experience for people, and you're being driven by your desires and want for something without actually actively communicating that to your partner. So I think my question is like fundamentally like, what is your expectation for marriage in your marriage relationship versus my expectation for my partner? Because I think those can be different. So what were you actually asking?
Talking marriage. So you started going into some stuff last week when we were kind of talking about this is what we think marriage is going to be like versus when you actually get into it. And I know Will has a lot of good stuff to add to that. But it's like when you get into marriage, a lot of us walk in with this fantasy view of what marriage is going to be like. I'm going to find this person, they're going to complete me, and we're going to build this great empire together, and we're going to complement one another, and everything's going to get so much better. But you actually get married, and sometimes things get worse, and you have to actually put forth a lot more work to build this marriage than you were putting forth in building yourself.
Right.
So now you're not just building for one, you're building for two.
Right. Well, and I think to your point about that, if we're talking about the expectation of marriage, like you said, a lot of people get into marriage with these beliefs, but like, what is that based on? Like, what is that modeled on? And I know when I got married, I think for context, I have been married and divorced. I got married, and my only like baseline expectation was that I don't want to be like my parents. That was my only thing going in. I was like, I don't want to be like my parents, because my parents were not, I loved them, but they were not a good, healthy model of a successful relationship or successful marriage. But that was my only like baseline for real, other than, you know, friends and others who would maybe let me into their home and I could kind of see how the relationships were, or other friends of mine that were married. So I think the root of what is the like foundation for your expectation and beliefs about marriage has to be looked at. Like, you know, I think a lot of people think marriage is what they see on TV or what they see in their home life or whatever, but those might not be the best examples. And I think I was striving very hard to not be in that space because I knew that my example was unhealthy. And so I worked very hard at doing not the opposite of that, but doing something that was as healthy as possible. And it just was, I was unsuccessful in that. But my expectations were pretty, like, I knew marriage was hard. I knew it was a lot of work because I watched my parents go through it. I watched my parents do it to this day. And, you know, and they made the choice to stay in their relationship despite the toxicity. And, but I knew that that wasn't what I wanted for me or my own marriage. And so I had to create that expectation for myself. What that wasn't recognizing that the things that I was using to frame that expectation were not good models.
So what was it actually like when you got married? How did it differ from what you thought it would be like?
I think the difference was that I believed in my spirit and my heart that love was enough to sustain things. That love could get you through all the bad. And I think that's the part that was a big misconception for me, that I knew it was work.
That's youthful thinking.
Right. I knew it was work, but I thought if I loved you hard enough, all this would go away and we would get better and it would work out. And so then when we started doing the work and it wasn't lining up with that, I think that was the biggest misconception for me. I thought if I just loved hard enough, I loved you hard enough, I loved everything hard enough, I put all my all into our marriage and it was going to be fine.
Will, what do you think about that?
I mean, I wrote a couple notes down, even when you just said that. When you just said I knew marriage was hard, well, that's an expectation too.
That's
you
true.
know, when you come into something with an expectation of it's going to be hard, there's just another posture you have versus thinking that something's going to be easy. Now,
Right.
I'm not saying, you know, one is better than the other, but
And I want to correct that. I didn't think it was going to be hard. I thought it was going to be work. And I think there's a distinction.
I mean,
there. So it's something you have to work at.
Same thing. So, I mean, just like if your parents were entrepreneurs, right? You can have the idea of, dang, you know, this thing is going to be a struggle, this thing's going to be work. Or you can have the thought of like, you know, this thing is easy. Like I come up with ideas and I just make them, right? So expectations are real. You know, they're so much deeper when you start to really like go into why you expect the things that you expect from someone else. That's one thing I kind of got from that. The other thing I wrote down was the anti cannot be the goal, right? Like you can, when you're like going through something, anything, like when you're going, I don't want to be like them, because I thought the same thing when I got married. It was like I just don't want to be my parents. And I just didn't want to be broke. Specifically, I didn't want to be broke, right? And I was like, you know, this is what my podcast is about. But I didn't want to be broke. So, but I didn't know that anti is not a goal. Just because I don't want to be that doesn't mean that I actually have a clear goal of what my finances are supposed to look like or what I would like them to look like as I get into a marriage.
Right.
So I think that marriage counseling is supposed to do this, like clarify your expectations. You know, but my premarital counseling in my first marriage was horrible. I mean, no shade to my pastors, but it was trash. You know, because it wasn't clear. We didn't clearly define what we both were expecting. It was just anti. It was like, I don't want to be like my parents. I want to be like my parents. Oh my God, let's make it work. What the hell does that mean?
We have to change this to shady views, because every week somebody just being shady as hell. But
Well,
definitely petty, right? Definitely petty.
I think something else that was really good is that it is like, you know, marriage counseling is supposed to do some of those things. And I think it's also when you get it. So like we didn't do premarital counseling.
Yeah.
We were both, I was in therapy before we got married.
Okay.
One of the conditions of us getting married, and not want to say conditions is a strong word. When we started having problems in our marriage, one of the things I suggested was that he also get counseling. And then we started seeing somebody together. So we each had our own separate people. And then we saw someone throughout the course of our marriage. And I think we did get to the root of a lot of that in those sessions. But again, it's work that another person has to come. Like, you know, I think the thing for me is like expectation is a lot of things, but humanity is humanity. Like people are going to be who they are, and not everybody can handle the expectations. Not everybody can handle understanding themselves. Not everybody can figure out what they want. And I think we went through a lot of counseling to kind of figure out like what we both wanted out of this relationship and what we wanted it to be. And so it did get to the heart of some of those things that you were saying. Well,
so I remember before it was this was the topic. I thought the other topic was going to be what age should we get married?
Yeah.
And me and Philip kind of argue about this all the time about, should you get married like 19 and just kind of grow with your mate, or should you get married like, when you got some sense, probably like in your 30s or so, right? We kind of go back and forth with that. I'm kind of a proponent of like getting married like 19 because the expectations are just not that much. You
don't have any.
And you're not really disappointed like that. You know what I mean? But
pros and cons to both of them.
Well, and I for the context, I got married in my 30s.
Yeah.
That's when I got married for the first time. I got married in my 30s.
Did you?
I did. I was in my 30s.
We were like 25 or something.
I was not. We had been together since I was like 26, 27, 25.
Oh, okay.
But we were not married. So I got married when I was 30. And actually, I think I just turned like right around 30. And
I got married at 30. So.
But I will say, like, to your point, even if you get married young, I think you can grow together with your partner under the assumption that your partner is actually growing. So that's the other thing too. Like, I think I'm a different person at almost 40 than I was at 30, than I was at 25, than I was at 19. You're a continuously evolving being. Yeah. And if the person you're with doesn't have that same understanding that they should be evolving too, or that you're going to evolve, then it creates imbalance. And then people are looking for you to be the same that you were, but you're like, hey, I'm in a different place in my life. I have different interests. I have different wants. And I think if you don't grow together, that creates discord.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So with that being said, so I got married for the first time in my 20s, second time in my 30s.
Okay.
So very different, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
If you are able to grow together, then I think it's a wonderful thing to get married young because like you said, those expectations are a bit different. Life probably hasn't hit you as hard yet. But the older you get, the more you get exposed to, the more comfortable you get with yourself, the more you learn about life. I feel like it gets more and more difficult. So Michelle, I'm coming to you now. So you thinking about how you were in your 20s versus how you are now, how do you feel like it's been finding somebody who matches you?
That's a great question.
I don't think there is anyone like me. Honestly, not trying to be funny, but like if you're trying to find someone that is on your same, I guess, wavelength as far as what you want to build a relationship with, there is no one that is on the same mental like that I want. So
you then versus you now, you feel like it would be about the same as far as finding someone?
Honestly, yes, because I've always been, I guess, the quote unquote old soul. I've never been the let me hit the club and stay out in the streets all night or whatever. Somewhere I was probably selling some products or something. So I mean, I ain't never been just hanging out like that unless it was money to be made. So I've always been on that type of level, and apparently we're all buffering right now.
But
we're back. It's over. It was a quick
we're good. We keep going.
But most of the people that I run into that are, unfortunately, I don't want to, not all men, but most of the men that I ran into in my 20s, they have the same mind frame in their 40s. And that's
a problem.
Grow up, get your whole life together. Like it's a lot of stuff that I can't speak for all men, but there's a lot of stuff that men are doing there are a lot of stuff that men aren't doing that they should be doing.
So,
and that kind of makes me feel like,
you don't think your expectations or your wants are different as you gotten older?
Honestly, because I've never been married, so I don't necessarily have an expectation on marriage. I know what I would want it to look like, but I don't have an expectation on it because I don't know. I don't even have a concept of what it would be.
Were your parents married?
Yeah, but I mean, they got divorced before I was even, knowing what a marriage was.
Okay, gotcha.
But that's kind of interesting to go in with just this clear slate of no real expectations of what marriage is. I think that can be
Hey,
good. Say what?
I'm speaking to Shula.
But
I think that can be kind of cool. I'm like, when I was 20, going into marriage, I know she had an idea of what she was expecting. And when I was talking to Lyndon and Jessica Saturday, we kind of started to hit on some things on the Do You Still Believe Live. So we started talking about that pressure of marrying into ministry. So I got licensed as a minister before I got a marriage license. So she was about to marry a minister, and she's marrying this minister that everybody has these high expectations for. So now you're coming in to this establishment, this religious expectation as well. So not only are you dealing with familial expectations, you know how it is. As soon as you get married, for some reason, everybody's walking up like, when are you going to have a baby?
when are kids
not
coming?
now.
Next day.
Right.
So there's those expectations from others as well. You have your own expectations, then other people have expectations. Then depending on your job, your career, there might be expectations there. If you have any type of political affiliations, there's going to be some other expectations, religion. So when I got married in my 20s, it was hard on her, I'm sure, but it was also hard on me because now I have this pressure of also being a guide to this person.
Right.
So now, cut to me getting married again later, a lot of that stuff was dropped. I was like, look, I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm still a man at the end of the day. I don't care how many people I preach to, how many books I've written, how many businesses I run. The reason I married my wife is because she didn't care about any of that stuff. She only cared about me. And I'm like, that was it. She's like, as long as you're happy, I'm happy, and I'm happy if she's happy. That was our expectation.
If I had to pick an expectation, if I had to have one, it would just to be have a teammate, a team player. Like I don't want the jealousy. I don't just root for me and I'll root for you, and let's do this thing.
So you might have got looser over time because you came from, very strict religious background, Tay. And I think the exact opposite happened to me. Not necessarily in the religious sector part, but when I first got married, I thought it was gonna be like we just come together and we have like these brainstorming sessions and we're just gonna take over the world together. And
Pinky in the brain.
Yeah,
world domination.
Well, yeah, I thought it was gonna just be more, meshy, it's just so easy. We just come up with this plan and we just go do it.
Yeah.
And now
Stupid boy.
I don't think that way at all anymore. Like I literally think more like, okay, here's the plan. Unless you got a better plan, do this plan. You know what I'm saying? Like that's.
See, but some of that come with age though, and I think for all of us, at least, I'm Michelle. This is a place where you can't kind of relate, but we've all been married before. So I think one of the things about being married prior is it shows you what you don't want and what you don't want to do, right? Like it helps you understand what you want and what you like and what you don't like, right? And I think the younger you are, while you may not have an expectation for marriage, which can be beneficial, you do have expectations for other things. Like I think a lot of young people, there's an expectation for a wedding. They don't think about what comes after your wedding. People plan for a wedding. You don't plan for marriage. And I think that is a big, you can have all of those things happen to you, good, bad, or ugly. But I think the younger you are, the less equipped you are to deal with some of those things. And as you get older, you're able to say that. Because I know when I was in my 20s, like I had some significant family loss. I had a major health crisis. And like all in my mid to early 20s. And I was dealing with a lot of stuff that most 20-year-olds weren't dealing with. So I had to find a partner and find somebody who could meet that and be a part of that and understand it. And if you hadn't experienced anything, like it was troublesome for me to find even just a boyfriend who understood. And I think as I got older, I was able to cope. I knew myself better. I knew what I wanted better. I was able to do those things and articulate that in a relationship, including in a marriage. It just unfortunately didn't work out for me in my marriage, but we worked towards that. And I think there is something to be said for being a little older and having that experience behind you, because then you can, like you said, you can say like, this is the plan. is, and like what you want to do, what we're gonna do is not what I envisioned it. It's what it is. And I think you're looking for some Tade, for you. You said you were looking for somebody who just saw you for who you were, and not was dealing with the pressures of having a spiritual or religious kind of weight of my profession or whatever kind of weighing in on our relationship. So,
what I don't want in any type of marriage, I don't want I don't want expectations. I want to be able to just kind of figure it out, and because you define what your marriage is. You can't sit there and say, "Oh, that other person, they did it this way." Damn them! Like, figure out how it works for you.
Yeah, I come back to communication. That's all.
A lot of people miss that, though. We go into certain things, especially with social media now. We go into stuff and we involve everyone else. That's why I'm like, a lot of people get married and plan these big elaborate weddings, and it's for those people that are in attendance. You're still trying to impress people. You're still trying to prove stuff. And then we'll go into a marriage and still have these expectations to show somebody, like, I'm not going to do like my parents did. I'm not going to do like my friends did. I'm not going to do like these people. You're going to succeed. And that adds pressure as well. So you have all these unnecessary pressures because of these unnecessary expectations placed on you by yourself, by society, by your religion, by your career, by all these other things. And you can't just go into your marriage and create what you want.
Right. But you can. It's just the people feel like they can't. And I think that's
I'm saying because of the
expects there
pressure.
to be some kind of guidance, like, benchmarkers for your marriage to be successful. But like, what works for you is what works for you and your partner.
And that's all
the only measure that you can grade yourself by, because that it starts getting extra complicated. Like you said, all those things start influencing your decisions. And people, again, people often plan for a life. Again, not planning for marriage. Like, people don't think about what goes into marriage. They think about, okay, I got to get a house. I got to have kids. I got to have a big wedding. I have to have everybody know that I'm married. There's a lot of, especially for women, I think there's a lot of ring chasing and not husband acquisition focus. Like, you're looking at getting checking the boxes off, as opposed to really finding a partner.
How realistic is it, like, if you go, you meet your partner or whatever, and to literally have a list and say, okay, this is what I want. Can we work on this together? And then vice versa, like, here's my list here, and then here's your list. How can we join this together and make it work for each other?
Very realistic. You should be having those conversations with anybody you're considering being in a relationship with for longer than a year. Like, I think, like, especially if you're talking about marriage, you should be able to talk to your person about your goals, your expectations, what you want marriage to be like for you, what they want it for them, and meet in whatever middle you guys find for yourselves. Like, 100% doable.
Yeah, because I'm on for, like, no talk Tuesdays. Like, I don't want to talk to you guys on Tuesdays, but any other day we're good.
Wait, what?
How do we even get there?
Wait,
I think that's important too. Having space.
Because listen, every time, everybody needs their me time, and I realize, like, if you're in a marriage, you're gonna have to be with this person every damn day.
Also,
it's gonna be one of them days you're gonna want to not be bothered. So no talk Tuesdays is gonna be the one for me.
This is why Michelle is still in the position she's in.
The older you get, the more you, like, appreciate your alone time.
True.
Okay.
And then you build that into your everyday, right? Somebody asked a question, though. Did you see it?
Yes. Good question. Do you think getting advice from a seasoned married couple could be helpful, or do you just keep everybody's opinions out, period?
Let me answer that.
So, go for it.
I was just gonna say that personally, I believe that when you get married, you should have a mentor married couple.
Yep.
Like, some people who have been through some stuff, like, can navigate you through the waters of some normal stuff. You know what I'm saying? With the exception of, he's beating me, what do I do?
Right.
Like, just some normal stuff. Because I want to do that, because if you don't define what normal is, people think that
That's true.
Normal. It's like, nigga, he's burning you with a cigarette. Just leave. All right.
Again, we have taken a very.
And why do people keep saying, let's normalize this? Like, stop normalizing everything. Like, some shit is really crazy.
True.
Yeah,
I agree with you, though. I agree. I think you need to have. I think having role models, examples, positive. Like I said, opened up with having healthy models of behavior.
Healthy.
Especially if you didn't grow up with that in your house.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't grow up with folks that was, the model parents or whatever. So I purposely had folks in my life that were my mentors. I think what the problem gets a little rougher is when, if your person is not willing to like receive, or is not used to receiving, like we're not used to, no shade to women, but most women don't have mentors, as opposed to like a guy with a mentor. You know what I'm saying? So when you talk to a woman and you say, hey woman, these are the people that I listen to them too. It could be a
work
little.
out that way.
It might be your delivery.
Yeah, that was terrible. So, and Andy Ritchie, to address that question on the other side, I agree with them. You should have some people that you can kind of look to as a model, but a lot of times that's really just them telling you marriage is not going to be as simple as you think.
Right.
But you still have to be careful with who you listen to, because there is no formula. There is not always a right answer to every single question when it comes to marriage. So you still have to create your own lane, create your own marriage the way you want it to be. Because what I've learned is there's a lot of couples out there that look like they have it together. But when you actually get behind closed doors, they don't know what they're doing either.
Right.
We're all figuring this thing out. There's an old deacon that used to be at our church, and my dad looked up to him. And my dad was like, how do you stay married? They've been married for like 60 years or something crazy. And he was like, I don't know. He said, every day I'm still figuring her out. And this is after 60 years. Like, it's preposterous that people think you're going to get married for like 3 to 5 years and you're just going to know each other and everything's just going to work out. No, 10 years later.
Yeah.
If you're always growing and evolving, like you said, Sean, you may not even be the same person you are now as to when you got married. So now you have to get to know me for who I am now.
Right.
So you're always trying to get to know each other. And I think that's good, because when you stop growing together, when you stop getting to know each other, things kind of get stagnant.
Yep.
And you might start getting bored. You might start getting tired of each other, annoyed with each other. But if you keep getting to know each other, so many things. But if you keep getting to know each other, you keep having new experiences, you keep doing new things, you keep it fresh, and your marriage can still continue to grow and be happy and fruitful.
Well, the truth of the matter is there is no guideline to life, period. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do. I mean, you can try to do right by life, but I'm saying there's no manual to say, if you do this, everything will work out right. That's just not going to happen.
It's a risk. I think that's what's hard for people, because marriage, relationships, and all things, there's a level of vulnerability that's required of you and of your partner, and it puts you at risk. And that can be scary. And I think, to your point, Tay, it's really, really crucial that you invest in your marriage. It's not just working in it. It's flowering, watering the garden as it's growing, right? Like, it's continuing to put and pour into it. And I think, on the flip side of that, back to the question around, like, seeking the guidance of others, I think it's also important. It's how you seek that guidance. Because I think there's a fine line between using people as a sounding board and then telling all your business because you need a validator, or you're looking for someone to tell you that your spouse is this or that. I think there's a level of, like, you have to be careful of how you utilize that people in that space, because not everybody's good at that. Not everybody can provide advice. Not everybody is good. To your point, some people are really just figuring it out. So you may not even have any real clue as if they're really a good example for you or not. So you have to really get to know people. And that's the same level of investment in a relationship that you would do with your partner. Like, you invest in your friendships, you invest in your circle, you invest in the people around you. And I think you have to do a level of that so you're not abusing, that path. Because I've been on the receiving side of that, where someone was like, well, I talked to my mentor and they said this, this, and this. And I'm like, your mentor doesn't know me from Adam. Like, what are we talking about?
There you go.
Like,
And nobody can know all your business.
tell them what I did. Did you tell,
Exactly.
Which is why counseling was helpful, because that was a neutral party that didn't have any investment. But I think when you pour into other couples as your model and work as in a collaborative space, and that can be very beneficial to you to have, again, a sounding board. But there's a fine line between that, taking a turn that could be detrimental to your marriage too. So be careful.
Well, I think that, first of all, there's bad mentors, just like there's bad counselors, right? I've had whack therapists before too, right? I had this lady, like, she started like burning candles and like throwing sage at me. I was like, I'm good.
The exercising demons?
I was like, this first session is free, right? But
Love your whole ring show.
so I've had some weird experiences too. But I do agree. I mean, I do disagree that majority of life is like kind of the same. Like a lot of our problems that we like really like bang our head up against the wall. A lot of older people didn't figure that shit out. Like I was with this weekend. We had breakfast with my wife's grandfather's little friend group. So it'd be like us right now at 90 years old. Really, there was a friend group.
Little friend.
We just went to breakfast with them, and one of them was 96, another one was 95. Most of them were in their 80s. We just asked them different questions about life. Now you were getting some like we're just trying to figure it out, but it was some like stop eating this shit, young boy. You know what I'm saying? It was like it was some very like concrete. I figured this out at 89 years old. A couple of the guys have been married for 60 years. I mean, so I actually do not think life is that complicated. Especially if it's like things like money issues, emotional issues, anger issues, things like that. You ask somebody a little older than you, yeah, you'd be surprised on how quickly those issues are like diffused.
Yeah, because they just having you wake up the next day.
No,
that's not it. That's not it, Michelle. That's not it.
You'll say something to somebody at 90 years old. You'll say something like, "Man, I just can't stand my wife. I can't stand my wife." And he say something like, "Well, do you want to be with her?
Right.
Do you want to be with her 20 years from now? Do you want to be with her 30 years from now?"
They know what's important, and
They
I think
know what's
something
important.
with age, you can get to the root of something more direct.
Exactly.
And some things
what
you
we do
realize
is,
it doesn't matter.
manifest all these other
Yes.
things.
So that's where I'm at. Like I like talking to older people because it really puts things in perspective. It's like I was just like having a talk with my wife, and I said, "Hey, you really got to be more decisive with me. Like I'm in business. Like I don't know what it means when you say I want to do this or 5 other things. What the hell does that mean? What do you want to do? You want to go to Aruba or not? Like I don't even.
Right.
Like, what does that even mean? Like so like there's majority of life is kind of like predictable as hell, yo. I mean, I hate to be that. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's
So
like,
the answer to life is be very direct, but just be cautious of how direct you are, how you present your directness.
No,
But
I
also,
think
some things just stop mattering as you get older.
right,
Yeah.
and I think the moral of that story again, it comes back to communication, because like you said, I told my wife I need this, I need more from her to be able to do this, and she was like, all right, I can do that. I think when it comes to older people and their perspectives, I think it's because they've gotten to a place where things aren't as important to them as they were, and then they have value in other things. And I think there is some differences, though. I think, while they're base things, the things that you will all deal with in life are the same. Like we will all deal with death. We will all deal with potentially financial issues. We will all deal with kids in some capacity. Everybody will deal with similar things. The element of surprise is that how everybody deals with something is different, and I think that is not something that's predictable. So I think that I would argue your case that yes, while the baseline problems are probably all the same,
I like that.
People are different, and I think at some point, the generations before us dealt with very different things in their relationships than we had to deal with, in a very different time than we've had to deal with, and then the generation behind us, as we become older people and start providing that mentorship and guidance, at some point we will be the people they look to for those things too. We will have a different experience because we've grown up in a different environment. And I think
some of these old folks, they had side pieces that had a whole family like up the street from them. Like now we deal with side pieces, but we don't deal with whole other families.
It's a different street, Michelle. I don't even count.
But see, you can do that then. Now social media will tell on you. Social media, like my granddaddy wasn't all up in nobody DM. Like you didn't have those issues then.
You didn't have access to those things either. You didn't have 24-hour access to content. And social media aside, I just would to say, as the age group that we are, the things that we've endured, like our generations before us, they had war. We've had wars. We've had financial crisis. We've had pandemics. We've had all things very similar to them, but on a much grander scale. And that's just our generation. Like. You got a whole generation of kids behind us that don't even know how to have real conversations with regular people. So they're not going to know how to have real relationships.
Yeah.
Because they grew up in an age where everything was digital and in your hand, and you didn't talk to people. You talk to TikTok. You don't talk to, so I think it's going to be very different
For real.
You know, as you even see the statistics for marriage changing, you know, I'm the research
Yeah.
person, I'm the data person. Like even that is shifting. Women and men are waiting till older in life to get married.
Yeah.
They're not having as many kids. People
I
are
can even see somebody DMing
prioritizing
a proposal now.
relationships. What?
I can even see people DMing a proposal now. Like that's how far removed we are from socializing
I
each other.
certainly hope.
I'm just gonna hit her up and see if
That's
she want to get married real quick through the DM.
That's funny.
That's like
That's funny.
like emotional intelligence has diminished. Social like interactions have diminished. So everything has come down to this real like short form media, like text message and short video, 15 seconds.
Yep.
Like I need a minute because I need some time to get, I need some background. I'm still from a generation where there was character development.
Absolutely.
Now you just jump right into it and it's boom, it's right there. So everything's quick. Like, hey, you want to just get married? But then again, Will, you got some of them old school folks that's been together for like 20 years and was on the couch one day and was just like, you want to just get married or what?
Just do it.
Yeah.
We're doing
But
this
they
tonight.
had to have a conversation before they got to that couch, though. They was probably kicking it for
Not
weeks
always.
and months, whatever.
Will told me, Will, that your uncle or somebody, like, one of you, it was either Will or Phil that told that story that was like, they just turned and looked at him one day like, you want to get married?
Why not?
Well,
And they had just been living together for like 20 years.
it's funny but it's funny our generation will be in a relationship for years and not talk about
Never
marriage,
get married.
Yep.
right? And no,
I'm
not
all
even
married
get
and everything.
but not even talk about marriage,
Yeah.
right? And you be surprised, right? So like I do believe in the basics, but I think the basics can get you like 60% there, right? Like for instance, I knew a buddy of mine. I was walking him and helping him get through his divorce, like showing him how to file and blah blah blah, and his wife was cheating on him and all this kind of stuff, and he's a smart guy, bachelor's, master's, professional dude. And I said, well, where'd you meet this girl? He says, well, she was the cashier girl at Walmart. So the first thing I said was, why would a person with a master's in engineering be marrying someone who's a cashier at Walmart? And he just paused and I'm like, that's something your grandfather would ask you if you had a granddaddy. He'd be like, why would you do that? Why? Or let's say the exact opposite. If you're a woman, you're having all these issues with your husband, and there's all these financial issues. Your grandfather's gonna ask you, well, why would you marry a guy who didn't know what he wanted to be when he grew up, when he married you?
Right.
I mean, these are basic stuff, but we don't talk like that. We talk like very flowery, you want a Lambo? Me too, man. One day, nigga. What is your credit score like?
But
Right?
it's
Well,
more men that
people
will
don't
date
have
below their
difficult
level than to match their level.
Right.
I can see many of men that could be, what the high value man, and they'll date the lady at McDonald's because they be like, we just want somebody that'll shut up and do what we want them to do when we want them to do it. So
Well,
it's
I
almost
think
like they're dating below what they need just because they don't feel like dealing with a woman that got her shit together.
Well, I think that speaks to something that somebody just put in a comment about intentionality and purpose. Like purpose-driven dating, like all that goes away. Like your purpose should be to find a match. It should be to find someone who matches your energy, your level, whatever you want to call it. It shouldn't be to get somebody who's just going to be a trophy wife or to be quiet or to find somebody to take care of you. And I think, Will, to your point, while we're talking about granddaddies having conversations, there's a lot of us, people of color specifically, who don't have any blueprint for marriage in their life cycle, right? Like you don't have parents who got married. That wasn't some people did. We don't do that. So like you don't have anybody asking you why you would even be with a person like that. It's what can they do for you? What are they giving you? What are you getting? And not what it should be, which is this going to be a successful relationship for you? And I think when you don't have a lot of people even asking you about marriage or asking you or whoever thought the concept of marriage. Because I think there's a lot of women and men out here who don't think they're worthy of that. They don't think that that's something that they can achieve because of whatever, their history, their lifestyle, whatever, but also because they didn't have an example of that. And while, like I said at the beginning, I may not have had the best example of marriage, I at least had it in my framework. And I don't think a lot of people have that.
Well, I think getting married is one thing, right? That's why I can talk to anybody about getting married. Because getting married is
that's easy.
It's like it's what I'm saying. It's easy. It's really easy, right? But staying married to somebody, growing with them, making sure we're on the same page, continuously having tough conversations is hard to do.
Right.
But if you don't start off the relationship with those tough conversations, which like, okay, here's a tough conversation. You're long distance with somebody, right? Y'all are together for, I don't know, 6 months. Let's say 3 months. First 3 months of relationship. Why is no one asking where the hell are we going to live if we stay together?
Right. When this ends, what's the next plan?
Yeah.
I literally had somebody I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she just found out the guy that she was dating long distance, he got engaged 2 days ago. That's how she found out.
He
that
wasn't.
Yeah. And she said they had been dating for years. And she found out he got engaged because one of the friends, she's really good friends with one of his friends, and found out through social media that her boyfriend is now engaged.
Well, and that goes back to Will's difficult conversations thing. Like, hey, does anybody think that you're with them that isn't me? Is anybody with you that I need to know about?
Yes.
Where are you going with this? Because you can be a boyfriend girlfriend situation for decades and nobody get married, and then he comes along and finds who his one is, but you're not having clear communication about your expectations.
How about were you born a woman?
Oh, that's a question we have to ask.
Were you born the man? I'm
well,
sorry.
and
just saying.
That aside, like other things, like what are your religious beliefs? How do you want to raise kids? Do you want to have kids?
Yeah.
You know, what's your relationship like with your family?
And you have kids, right?
What kind of relationships were modeled in your life? You know, are your parents still married? There's a lot of people that don't know anything about their spouse's family. They don't know anything. Like you can't go into something and not have contextual information to help you make informed decisions. And I just don't understand how people go in and don't ask those difficult questions and then expect to have a successful relationship.
You better say it. You better say it.
When you meet the parent, it's really giving you a framework of where you're headed a lot of times. Like it's a glimpse into the future.
Yep.
To say, oh, okay. For instance, and this is going to show my shallow side. I was dating a person before, met their parents. I was like, oh, wow, everybody in your family's overweight. So more than likely.
Didn't expect us to take this turn, but carry on.
I'm sorry. But it's like, it's an expectation. Like, I'm not.
Well, fat you can change, but at least you didn't say everybody in your family is ugly. You know what I'm saying?
That's a fact.
No, Michelle, you can't always.
Part of this conversation.
Because
I went out.
Some things are in the chemistry. Some things, it's in the biology. So you might, I'm not, you know.
So her whole family
maybe obesity isn't the issue. Maybe we should be asking like, hey, what's your family medical history?
Medical history, health, all that stuff. And that's what I was ready to say. That's what I was going to say. I'm big on health. Like, I want you to be healthy. Like, some people are set up to be larger. That's not always something you can change. Like I said, some things go down the biology.
You ain't set up the tacos and the pizza, nigga. Like, what you mean set up to be fat? Like,
no, I'm not trying to set up to be fat. I said larger. Larger. It's a health issue. I want the people that I'm with to be healthy. Like, I don't care if you're on the thicker side or thinner side. I want you to be healthy because being too thin can be unhealthy too.
Absolutely.
So you have to look at both. Like, I've met people whose parents look like, you know, oh my goodness, I almost used the term I don't think I should use on here, but they're smaller individuals that look like they may have negative habits. So I'm like, is this just genetics or do you have a habit?
BMI.
And even that, it's like, you know, are you a crackhead or something? Like, is that something I got to look out for? Do you share drugs with your parents? Was drugs normalized in your life? What things were normalized to you that may not be normal to me?
Can we get to another basic question? So we're talking about health, like mental health. Like, can we get to like, how do you handle stress?
First of all, here's some basic questions right here. Because if you watch the show, first of all, don't judge me because my wife watches a lot of freaking reality TV. But I watch it too. I watch it with her. So that show, Ready to Love, right?
Okay. I love it. I love that show.
Everybody's like 30-something or 40-something in there, and like one of the things I think is interesting, and I would run if I would, and I have ran from this right here. Okay. You're 36, 37 years old, and you've never been in love. You've never been in a relationship. I'm out of there. You know what I'm saying? I'm straight. You know.
Well, they never said they wasn't in love in a relationship. They just hadn't found the right one.
No. There was a couple people in there who hadn't been in a relationship. When you say you haven't been in relationships in 15 years or 17 years and you're 40, that means you haven't been in relationships since you were 23 years old.
That's a lot. A lot has happened to you since then that you need to deal with.
A long time. That means that That means what? You haven't been in a relationship since you've been paying your phone bill. Like
Wait,
that.
would you prefer them to not have been in like toxic and terrible relationships, or to not have to abstain completely? Like I think that's a double-edged sword for women because like
It is. It's a no. I'm not
That's
saying
some
it's
kind
a
of
slippery
experience.
slope, but it's gonna be a no for me. You know, I mean, because it's like that's like not having driven for 20 years. I mean, it's
I'm not gonna get in a car with you.
I'm
You have-
not gonna give it. I don't give you got a
I
license.
get it.
I don't want to do it.
I
Because-
wouldn't say it is a no for me, but it's gonna prompt some qualifying questions.
It depends on why the breakup happened. Like, I mean, the person could have died. It could be anything.
Why are you avoiding relationships? Are you still personally working on your own growth despite
Right.
not having that? You know, like I just think there needs to be some questions asked before I completely write you off. Because I think there have been. I mean, but I'm with you. Will. Like I think there have definitely been men that I know, like in their 40s, who've never been married, never, you know, don't have kids, and they've never had long-term relationships. And I'm always like, okay, Spidey sense doesn't think that's good. But
that junk is weird. That junk is weird. You're like, yo,
Yeah, if you're over 40 and you've never been married or have kids or whatever, you might have PTSD or something. I don't know.
well, you could be under 40 and have all those things and still have PTSD, FYI. So there's that. But I mean, I think there's so many things that happen when you abstain from the, like, there's reasons, and I think there's a level between, like, I can say I've been in love, but I can't say that the love has been reciprocated in a way that I find to be like what I'm
appealing to me
in my relationship. Right. So, like, you know, I think there's a level of, like, it's situationally dependent in some cases, and I think if you get to know the person and figure out what those things are, then you can understand if those red flags are because of them or because of their circumstance. Mm-hmm. And I think that can be a different scenario. But I think the other thing too is, like, as somebody who's been married, I have a harder time as a woman dealing with and dating men who have not. Because then it's always like, either this kind of weird comparison happens and they're like, well, I don't want it to be like your first situation, and it's all this like expectation, or they just don't have a baseline for what they want. And I'm like, that don't help me. Like, I know what I want.
They're both difficult if you have a baseline or if you don't. Yeah. Like, there's pros and cons again to all this stuff, and there's difficulties because if you've been married before, it's easy to go in the second time and say, well, I know what I don't want. Yep. But you can also say, I do know what I want. Like the first time around, you have no baseline. You have no idea what you're doing. You're both learning together, which can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing because you don't know how to deal with certain things. Like Will said earlier, now I'm not going in like, what are we going to do? Hey, we have this problem. We have to figure out a plan. What are we going to do? Now I'm like, well, I've dealt with that before. I know exactly what to do. Right. We could do this, this, and this. Now we can change it up to fit us. But we may want to start by doing this, this, and this. This is a way, like you said, a lot of problems you have in marriage are normal things. Yep. It's financial, you're dealing with family, dealing with stress, dealing with these types of things.
Cohabitation issues are like part of divorce.
Number one.
People
really?
Can't deal with, yes, people can't deal with people.
It's hard to learn how to live with somebody else.
You've never lived with somebody else. That's a red flag for me. I'm like, hey, no. Like, we can't do it.
See, we all got our things.
Yeah.
But it's like learning to live with somebody is difficult. I love my wife to death, but sometimes the fact that we have a king size bed and you got to sleep right up underneath me at times drives me crazy because I like my space. This is my side. I have drawn a line. Like, this is the middle of the bed. That's the place you're supposed to be over there. And this is where I exist. And if our woman comes over, I'm mad. No, so now I'm like smacking arms, I'm kicking legs, I'm doing everything because I'm like, you have violated the line. You have come across the gun line almost. Like,
that is fact.
Get over there.
The reason I got a king, the first purchase I made after my divorce besides a house was a king size bed. The first purchase, because I was like, I want my space. You learn that lesson. And I think someone made a really good point about society isn't trained to cohabitate anymore. I don't think we've ever been trained to cohabitate. We were always taught shacking up was wrong. You shouldn't live with a person before you get married. Don't try the cow before the milk before you buy the cow. We're told all these things that are actually kind of counterproductive sometimes, I think. Because I think cohabitation is critical because it's one thing to be around somebody, but to live in the same space, to share your sanctuary with another human being, and you don't know if they leave towels on the floor, how they cook it, how they wash dishes. You don't know what if they're a neat freak or an obsessive compulsive person. You don't know any of those things until you do it in the same moment. You are learning a whole lot of things about that person at one time that can be overwhelming. It's like walking into a TJ Maxx and not knowing where to go.
Now, one thing
Too much.
I saw on Wendy Williams, you know how she have asked the questions like to the audience, and the one guy asked, he was like, you know what, I've been married for 10 years, but my wife will not move in with me. And I'm like, what the hell is that? So they have separate homes.
Yeah, I guess.
They have separate homes, and they literally spend the night over each other's house. And he was like, but I want to live with my wife. And, you know, she was there. She was like, no, what we do is fine. I love how we do, and we're good. If you don't want to, you know, if you want me to live with you, that's too bad. But I almost feel like I'm okay with that. Because
I joked about his and her houses before, but I
you
couldn't
just
imagine.
need his and her sinks and a bathroom door that closes. That's all you really need.
No, I know there are people like that too, though, Michelle. Like there's his and her houses. There's people that will have houses next door to each other, or they just never moved out of their other houses, but they're married.
Yeah.
And I think that is interesting, but you still have to learn how to deal with those types of issues when you're married. Otherwise, you don't get married. You don't have to get married.
Also
But
true.
then if you do, I mean, I guess it's to each his own.
Well,
But
it's funny because when you if you ever do like some sort of like government form, it'll say married and living separately is a box. Even on your taxes, it's a box.
Yep.
it's become normal now. It's become a thing.
Well, but I think that's when you think of people who are like bi-coastal or like you
The
have
military.
military, so people who are like their profession takes them out of state all the time. Like I know people who are in that space, but they still at some point have cohabitated together. It may not be on the regular basis, but they still live together in some kind of space. And I think,
And I'm sure it's not weird for them to like look up and the person's still in the house.
right? What do you do?
Go next door to your house. Leave me alone.
That's home, Negro.
I'll say this too though. My former pastor used to always say marriage is the greatest institution for growth. because it grows you up in so many ways. And I think that the problem with our society is nobody wants to like do anything to grow up. It's just like
People don't want to grow up. They're fighting it
lose
tooth
weight.
and nail.
Yeah, or you want to get stronger, but you don't want to be sore. You don't
You don't want the pain points, but you need that to grow. That's good growth.
exactly. So, and it's interesting because even if you have a roommate, just a roommate like that it really will give you some idea of cohabitating when you're married, because you're not thinking to yourself like, because my wife had really never really had anyone live in the house with her. And it was interesting because she would be getting up like before we go to bed, like checking all the doors, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you checking the doors? That's
Things locked up.
Force a habit, right?
my job. You know what I'm saying? But it only been her. You know what I'm saying? And it's interesting because like those types of things to work through make you so much better as a couple. Like it solves a lot of other problems too, because you got to learn how to trust the other person.
And address issues so they don't fester, because they're right in front of you. Like you can't, I think it's a little easier if you're long distance for you to be able to be, okay, I don't have to deal with that. We don't have to have these critical conversations. But if I'm sharing a bed with you, we getting up, brushing our teeth in the morning, every morning, we see each other on the way home, we eating dinner together. Like we gotta talk about the elephant in the room.
Yep.
Because there's no way for us to get through that without having those discussions. And I agree. I think cohabitation really allows for that. And I think it is a way it grows you up. It is a learning curve. And I think it's harder to do when you're doing it for the first time and you have other complications, like you have kids or you have other things that actually all have to merge together at one time too. And that makes it, I think, can be challenging for people. And that gets tricky too, because it's nice. I think, we were talking earlier about getting married younger. I think that is one of the benefits of that. You can live in those spaces unencumbered. Yep. But as you are older, those things are typically come with the territory. There's always going to be potentially some co-parenting situation. There's potentially family issues, but we're at an age where we have to start, become caregivers for not just kids, but for our parents. You have other things that are potentially going to contribute to your cohabitation, and that can be challenging if you're not equipped to deal with stress or really work together in that space. So new marriages, that can be a strain. And
or I even say this because Michelle's the only one on the call who hasn't been married. Michelle, you believe it or not, one of the biggest arguments you're going to have the day you get married is when you move into the place, the physical location, what furniture is going to be where.
What we keeping, what we going, what's going away.
Who's keeping what and what's going to go. That is a big deal when you're grown. Because it's your freaking
Why?
I just
Because
changed everything.
it's a merging of lifestyles and,
Yes.
and practice, right? Like I think that's
I
hard
mean,
for
wouldn't
people
it just be
because
like a
a lot of
logical
people's
answer?
ideas
Whose
rather
ever
than-
furniture looks the best?
They didn't have a couch.
But that's based on your opinion. Because if that person had that furniture, they probably thought it was the best. And if you have your furniture, you probably think it's the best. Me, I
But that's
just
how
get
put it
new
this way.
stuff.
You can say, all right, with this house that we have got together, which furniture either fits or looks the best in this room? Like, how is that a
But
difficult?
that was also
Wait,
under
wait.
the assumption y'all agree on
But
that.
you think-
You might have different
Exactly.
styles, you might have different design preferences, you might like different things.
And you
So
learn
then-
that nothing is that
I'm gonna
simple.
be okay with that bed, Michelle. The bed you got right now without them little.
Yeah.
You think your husband gonna be okay with that bed?
You gonna have to be better with it.
See? And that's why, never mind. But
First of all,
it's like,
everybody loves a bling.
Something
What
new. We gotta
person
do
do you know that don't like a bling in
together.
their life?
We sold,
Everybody
I sold
needs bling in
everything.
their life.
Sell it all. Let's get rid of
Do y'all
everything.
see this? Do y'all see this?
bro,
Well, I
like
tell
I
you one
said,
quote that I heard. One quote that I heard that I feel like it is absolutely true. They said marriage is designed to dissolve selfishness.
Yes.
So I
That's true.
definitely
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yes.
But they're gonna get these diamonds on that ass. I tell you that.
Oh,
keep it simple, man. Keep it simple.
okay.
Sell your
Okay.
stuff. Sell your stuff
Yeah.
and just buy new stuff together.
Buy new
That's
stuff
it.
together.
Just
And
Keep
that
it
actually,
simple.
the same is true for people who are on their second marriage. So for those of us who have gone through marriage before and you were like, hey, when I started dating somebody new, I was like, purge it all. I got rid of I kept two things.
Exactly.
Two things. And they were things that were so neutral that it didn't matter. But you get rid of everything else and you just start afresh.
Well, I
Exactly.
hope that we have
Your
more than
own
one
person
room.
doesn't
So
wanna
if we
come
have
into
more than
that.
one room, then this bed can be in the guest room, and we can get a
Exactly.
different separate suite.
Not if you done smash tail on it. I don't want that bed in my house.
Right.
Hell no.
Right.
Why would you throw me into this?
Just an
I
example.
was just over there minding my business.
Hold on.
I'm
So you telling me?
But it's
First of
that's
all-
the truth though.
Is
My
it-
wife
First of
told me
all,
that. She was like,
Yeah,
you know you're not bringing
your
it
stuff
there,
has
right?
history. Your old furniture has history.
No, that's
Say it
true.
again.
But first of all, this bed is a bed of
Say
purity.
it again.
History.
The diamond equals purity. This bed is a bed of purity.
It's
So
No,
the purity
Michelle.
bed.
It
Well,
ain't.
There has been some impure things happening.
It ain't. Some impure
There was
things,
some
impure
impure
thoughts,
things
all
happening.
things bad. That's not
Exactly.
This
My
bed
wife
is going
told me.
into the guest room, so they can have that. Like, I mean, of course, we get married,
No,
we're
and
gonna get a new bed.
You know what it is, though? I think this proves a point that I think a lot of people's identity is often wrapped up in their possessions.
Mhm.
And I think for people who are merging lives, it's hard to let go of the self that you have built by yourself.
True.
So to Michelle's point, marriage does help with selflessness. It helps you build as a unit. And I think part of that means getting a new bed, getting some new dishes.
So you
Oh,
telling me
Yes.
this
a whole
brand
different
new
wedding is
sparkling
different.
bed, I can't put it in the guest room?
Do some new stuff.
Why
It's
can't
a
I put it
new
in the guest
life.
room? No.
You're
Guest room
building
ain't
a new
bothering
life.
nobody.
A whole
No,
new life.
you're building a new life.
And hopefully in a whole new space. So-
Exactly.
Exactly. That's why
So
they
just let it
that's why
go.
they say don't move
Let it
into
go.
the other person's house. That's exactly why, because they said that
Well, yeah.
you tend to be more territorial when someone comes into
Move
your
into
Yeah.
your space. Yep.
Absolutely.
You're moving into their world, into their life. So it makes it difficult for you to build a life together.
Yes.
So just if you're really ready to get married, you have to be ready to let go of everything that was behind you.
Your old
Yeah.
self.
Like you gotta let go of your past in order to build this new future. So that means that old furniture, sometimes your old clothes, like she said, your old dishes, some old
Purge.
stuff because you don't know the attachment that it had to your
Who
old
gave
life,
it
your
to you,
old
where it
partner,
came
old
from,
date.
or
I can
any of
see
those things.
The only way I can understand clothes is if it's like it's your old, like your whole clothes. But like just regular jeans and t-shirts.
Wait a minute
no,
now.
I get rid of them.
Who got whole clothes?
Everybody got a freaking dress. I mean, no, I'm not like.
You
if you want me to get rid of
freaking
that,
dress can be for your husband. Like I don't know what we're talking about.
No,
I'm
sometimes,
That's the only thing I
it'd be
can.
like, sometimes it'd be like,
I took that with me into my marriage. Liquor.
sometimes it'd be like, who got you that shirt? Who got you that jacket?
Exactly.
Right.
And you'd be
Or
like,
it
I have a job. I
you
bought me
attach
that
to those
shirt.
things. But that applies to jewelry. It
True.
applies to, like, there are so many things that you are gifted in the course of especially if it's a long-term relationship before you got married to somebody else. Like, that's a lot of history.
So
And
question:
what
have
you
you
did in those
you had
clothes.
questions like that before in your marriage? Like, oh, I like that watch. Who bought you the watch? Like, why
It's not
couldn't you
even
buy-
that always. It's sometimes your mentality. What did you do in those clothes? You may have bought those clothes, but you
Okay.
may go and put on a certain shirt and be like, oh, I remember when I was wearing this
Or
and
did
so.
that. Yep.
See, no, that's
So
what
it's
y'all
like
do.
it's
That's how y'all
connected to
mess
an
up.
old
I
life.
didn't tell on myself. What? No.
Dude, I ain't saying tell. It's in your
I
head,
think what
and it
we
affects
Exactly.
your
If
marriage.
it's
Michelle's
in
not
your
ready.
Michelle, let me ask you a
She's
question.
not ready for
It's
marriage.
in your head.
Let me ask you a question. So you marry your dude, and he has a king size bed too. And
Okay.
he wants to bring the bed in your new place. You not gonna ask him if he
I'm going to say if you want to
What's
have
your
that
body
bed,
count on this
it can
bed?
be in the guest room. It's not going to be our bed. It can be the guest room.
are you gonna ask him is the question.
Ask him what he did in the bed.
Yes.
I don't have to ask him. I already know.
So what if he starts spending nights in that guest room?
Bring that new bed in y'all new house.
In the guest room, I don't care. But will it be our
What
bed?
were they
No.
giving you? What was your sage and we got sage and holy water? We got.
Well, I mean, like, if you first of all, if you newly married, I'm not
that juju.
If anything, if I don't do nothing else, I know how to budget, and I'm not finna be spending a whole bunch of extra money on some shit that we already got.
I agree with changing the mattress. Somebody said that change the mattress. You definitely
Change
do
the
mattress.
mattress.
Mainly just because you should be changing your mattress out regularly.
You should do
anyway,
that.
But there's
Yeah.
that.
Right.
But
That should just be a common
first,
practice.
people.
Look, the bed ain't got nothing to do with
People
that.
that were in the mattress industry.
Then I might have some issues because I want no raggedy furniture, but no, I'm not tripping.
I will
From
say
two
though,
people that
Michelle,
were in the mattress industry, change your mattress regularly. It's people that had mattresses passed down.
they can.
I
they
was at
can
my parents'
expire.
house. I said, ain't this the
Expire.
same mattress when I was a kid? I peed on this bed.
It ain't
Like,
still
why
like
do you
it
still
was.
have
You
it?
know what's on that mattress.
Exactly. I was a child in this bed.
It's the same bed as I was 8 years old.
No, that's a tragedy.
Oh God.
But Michelle, for you,
Oh Lord.
there's also just an element of just for consideration because I know you're like I'm keeping my stuff.
Mhm.
There's a fun element when you're building a life with somebody of doing those things together, mattress shopping, buying furniture together. That's actually one of the the fun positives early on in your marriage, I think.
True.
Find, it could be the thing that makes or break a lot of people, but it's like
True.
searching for a house, searching for furniture, understanding your styles, finding something that meets you both, and that actually represents where you are in your union. That is really it's positive and fun.
Yeah.
So don't count it out because you're trying to hold on to your old bed.
But no, I'm not against like getting new stuff. I'm just saying, like when you first get in marriage, you don't want to incur a debt as soon as you get married, and like buying a whole bunch of new stuff just for GP just because.
When you get to this age, Michelle, if you got somebody that is on your same level financially or higher,
Right.
So typically I want to go lower, right? But
Of
if
course
he's
not.
Because then you can
where
have
you
nice
are
things.
or higher, he's gonna be like, let's get all new stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Also, just for the sheer fact that you don't want to have to move shit. The great thing about new stuff is it gets delivered.
Yeah, that's
I'm
true.
not moving again.
That is a part of the reason why I do what I do. Like, we're talking about moving and stuff now. And I'm like, look, matter of fact, I can show you this room. This room's already been cleared out. But I'm like, we start selling stuff off because I'm not moving a whole bunch of stuff. From my old house, I brought forward this desk because I like my desk.
That's it.
And that was it. Everything else is new. Even before we moved in the house together and like I was here kind of setting things up, she was like, ooh, I found this furniture I like. I really like it. I'm like, oh, I like it too. I just went and picked it up.
Right.
Like, and then she got here and she was like, oh my God, you got the furniture. I did. Like, we're building a new life and we're building it together. She looked forward to it. She was like, I've always looked forward to going furniture shopping with my husband.
Right.
And now we're doing that. We're not just moving a whole bunch of stuff from our old lives into our new lives.
Right.
We're starting a new life together.
So I'm a bit different. So my wife is like all fancy. I'm country as hell apparently when it comes to like stuff like this. So I had never bought. Like,
Don't tell me you have wicker furniture.
No. I had never bought brand new furniture.
All the plastic still
Why
on
is
this
that what
stuff.
makes you country?
None of that. Like I never. So I'd never been a furniture shopping before. Or nothing. So like, so when we got this house, like it was like $10,000 worth of furniture, and I'm like, whoa, like I ain't never seen it like this before. Like they bring the couch to the house, nigga, you know. So
What? You was excited about a couch? Nigga, what you a lot feet? You really gonna blow your mind, ain't it?
I mean,
Oh my God.
But that's
Have you heard of
that
Chase
you
Lane?
guys did together, right?
look, I never.
What is that?
It's
Do you know
something
they got
you
these
did
things
together,
called
though,
mounts
right?
for TV?
Well, like y'all
I'm
work
the
towards
dude.
that.
I'm the dude that'll let the chick bring in all her crap. I would be like,
Oh,
Okay.
don't do
let's
that.
do that.
Mm-mm. I don't want to bring.
Because I'm
I
cheap.
don't want to bring any of my stuff.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
but now
Well, exactly. I'm cheap too, so that's what I'm like, nigga, I ain't buying no new shit.
Y'all terrible. We gotta get
I
ready
like
to wrap
90
this thing
days.
up.
So maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
My computer's not on. I have no idea what time it is, but I know we've been doing this for a while now.
It's 10:09.
Okay, so we're clearly at an hour. What'd you say? We are definitely at an hour.
Michelle's keeping her
So-
bed, FYI. So
Keeping the
That's
gifts
her
from her
final thought.
previous boyfriend. She gonna have all the dishes from everybody, whatever get like she gonna have all the
But they
previous
won't know.
stuff on display.
all kissable lips, dishes and crap in the house.
But they're not going to know.
She gonna have an ex-boyfriend man cave.
How will
She gonna have
they
a
know?
dedicated man space to all this
They
stuff.
will not know. They will not know. The only thing they're going to know is my products. But anything else that was a gift, they ain't going to know. I ain't tell them.
Okay.
You're starting off bad. Okay, I'm off the
Starting off
Ron
with
Walker.
this
This has been another episode of Opposing Perspectives. Michelle, tell them who you are.
Michelle C. of Candy Kisses TV. Please follow the podcast. It's KANDID. Kisses TV on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Anchor, Spotify, all things streaming.
Will.
Will Jordan, you can follow me Renaissance Will 404 on IG. Podcast coming soon.
LC.
I am LaShondra. I'm one half of the Grown Ass Dating podcast. You can follow us at grownassdating.com or Grown Ass Dating on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Please subscribe.
And again, author Ron Walker. Please go follow the YouTube. Should have a new motivational video on there. Gonna try to upload one every Sunday or Monday, something like that. But we're getting where we're going. Again, thank you everybody. Wonderful talk. Great having you guys on again. So let's just keep on growing, keep moving forward. To everybody else, thank you for tuning in, and y'all have a good night.
All right, peace.
Yeah.